Okay, let's start this again.
Did you start it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, then I won't chit-chat with Justin here about his background and such. Justin, I'm on the Heber City Council. Spencer's on the Wasatch County Council. And Ryan is our Economic Development Director for the entire valley. He's he works with the county, he's under the county. He's also our Chamber of Commerce.
You're going to have to talk up, though.
Leader, okay. And then Tracy, she's a realtor in our valley, but she's like the #1 prime citizens advocate in the valley also. And she has a real commitment to open space like all of us do, which is why we're on the committee. So is that good enough to start?
That's good, yeah. Good.
What about you guys?
Yeah, what about you?
What about me? Okay, I'm an attorney, and I do a lot of land use work, real estate background and construction. I grew up working construction. My dad was a contractor. I actually grew up in Hawaii, on the North Shore of Hawaii. Married a girl from Utah for college, and she wanted to live in Utah. And so I said I'd live anywhere in Utah. Right, I'd live in Utah if I got to pick where in Utah we lived. And I chose Heber City. And I love it. It's got horses and an outdoor lifestyle, and I just love the community we have. I am guilty of being one of those people who moved in and they said, okay, that's enough.
We all are.
They stopped the building for me.
No, I was born here.
No, don't put me in here.
So you're the only local then?
Yeah.
Well, actually, my family moved here when I was 2 weeks old, so I'm still,
Okay.
I don't remember anything.
No,
They were
you don't.
painting the house when I was born.
So you need to tell me you weren't born here then.
Yeah, they owned the property in the 60s. Like,
No,
No, that doesn't
I mean, I was
count. You're not
kinda,
local either.
They just weren't done yet. I'm going to go ahead and claim it because
Okay.
nobody can prove otherwise.
Yeah, I like
Okay,
I think anyone
unless we
pre-Olympics.
pull up the tape.
Yeah, pre-Olympics, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, Steve Farrell, our other county council member, is ill and not able to join us right now, but he's given me somewhat of a list.
Great.
And so let's just go through that.
And Cortland Nelson is out of town,
He's
just so.
He's the Midway Town Council, city
Yeah.
councilman.
No.
Right.
No, he's not on the council.
Oh, he isn't?
He's
No,
not.
he's a citizen in
Former-
Midway.
Appointed.
So,
Former director of the
Appointed.
state
so the mayor
park.
went, okay, I just assumed he was on there because he was appointed from Midway City.
Well, and he's highly qualified,
Oh,
that's
he
why
is?
they let him.
That's awesome.
I mean, but yeah.
So the first thing that Steve wanted us to verify is that everyone received the meeting list, and we're good with that?
Yes.
He also wanted to verify that he's changed the county council meeting for the 28th.
Yep,
Yeah,
We'll
we have moved
present,
it.
but also on the 14th, where we'll present to the work meeting
I thought it was
first.
7. Is it the
The
14th?
7th is our, so it'll be our 14th.
14th for the work meeting,
Okay.
but the 28th for the real presentation that perhaps can move our proposal
We
forward.
moved our county council real meeting from the 21st to the 28th.
Thank you.
Okay.
So on the 14th of February, there's a meeting?
No.
March.
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 This is where we'll present, that 14th meeting will be a work meeting at the county council
I see.
for what we're developing right now in this meeting and in the meetings in February, okay? But that's our big push, is to be ready for the 14th, take feedback from the county council, make adjustments as needed, and then come with our final or hopefully solid proposal on March 28th, okay? All right, now, the next thing he wanted me to address was the election of the chairman and the vice chairman. And he was hoping maybe we would defer it until he and Cortland could get back. But I think if we defer it, we better make sure to do something about it at the next meeting.
I think that's good, and maybe I would just, not that we're this formal, but make a motion that you be our temporary or interim chair.
Oh, that's
for
kind
this.
of you.
So,
But I was going to suggest another idea too.
Okay.
So that's one way we
Free
could do
for
it.
all.
No, I was thinking maybe we could at least vote on the vice chair.
Let's just wait. I don't think it's that crucial to get it going.
Well, here's another idea I was thinking about tonight. I know that we have a long way to go as far as everything this board can do,
Mhm.
right? Steve had said, let's look at criteria. I've got you some criteria. Steve said, let's look at bonding language. Tracy went out and did that already, right? And
Mhm.
sent that to us. And then this other information that I found, again, it's just from one state, it's from Minnesota, but it's their whole state plan on all the process to go through, all the checklists, everything that needs to be done and documented, how to work with other non-governmental groups. I mean, it was really, really excellent, all these checklists and such. And I thought, okay, That's what we've got to develop, right? What about discussing subcommittees among us? What kind of subcommittees could we use to say, all right, you develop criteria for conservation easements and bring us back something to the group, right? And then another subcommittee could develop the procedures for, you know, what I'm seeing here on the land acquisition or the education outreach to the community. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that something that we'd be interested in? Setting up subcommittees?
So what if we kind of take this on an assignment basis, so maybe less of a committee initially?
Okay.
So
just
like the
individual.
education component, I think I could maybe take that one. Then as it matures, we could develop a committee of people to help me with that.
Mhm.
Or if it's conservation easements, I just hate to create a committee for something that we don't quite understand yet. And I think the committee will follow the substance of the policy, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But I like the idea of creating assignments and
Mhm.
like maybe I take one part and Spencer takes a part and Justin takes it, you know?
Yeah, play to our strengths.
Yeah.
And relationships.
At this point, I think we need to define what we're going to ask for. And then by the time we get to so we are prepared for
Yeah, I
our
mean-
presentation, and then we vote, and then if the county council approves it, which I feel they probably will, then we have time to educate the public, and then we need to go into high gear on all of that stuff.
Right. Now,
And I think maybe Tracy and, you guys.
Ryan.
Ryan, oh, sorry.
it's okay.
I was
I was
thinking
gonna help you
Iron
out.
Man, I might, you know.
We can go to Iron Man. You can go to Tony or
Stark,
Ryan.
Tony Stark, you know, him.
So Spencer, are you saying then?
I've had a
that
really rough day.
It's been a big week. It's okay. It's always that way when you're.
Yeah,
these
what I
councils,
think-
but-
What I think Spencer's trying to say, and I'm trying to back up here a minute before we start even getting, but I agree with Ryan that we can each take on a little project singularly,
Okay.
so that we don't have to communicate with each other. We can just get it done.
Just
Do you
do
know
it.
what I mean? Let's
Okay.
just get it done. We're adults, we can do that.
Okay, that's fine.
And then, but I'd like to step back a minute and go, okay, like Spencer just brought up, what do we need for March 14th? That should be our priority right now. These committees and these information things we can bring to the group is after we're ready to go to present to the county on what we're doing for the bond. Now, if these things are part of it, like the criteria, if they're gonna wanna know some of this, but to me, it's more of how much money are we going for, like Ryan said, and then what that means per property owner, you know, how much is that gonna be, and break that out, and have an idea of what kind of money we're talking about to the taxpayer. And those kind of things, I think, are what we need to bring to give them an idea of what kind of money we're talking about, not just for residential property owners, but for the commercial businesses on Main Street, for, you know, they're gonna be paying more than your residential person. And so that's what, if we had more of a accountant in the group, and I mean, part of this is going to Brett Tickham upstairs at the clerk's office, and he's gonna be able to tell us, I think, as I recall, he said like $12 per 100,000 of assessed value for 5 million.
5 million?
Is that the same on homes, and what about commercial?
No, that, he just said per
Just for home.
residential, you know,
So probably more
100,000 of
sure.
value is what he said. So, you know, it's more of getting our arms around 5 million or 10 million.
And what can be done with it?
And what can be done with it. And if you saw that bond wording I sent, it's pretty simple. I mean, you know, you don't get extremely specific on the bond language. Boy, have I learned that.
Yeah, it was good how you said,
All or a portion of, this
Yeah.
or that or this or that. I mean, it's pretty open. Now, the criteria and everything comes from this group to suggest to the county council what the criteria is gonna be, how we're gonna break down that money to Midway and these other, you know, what they have to come to the table with to be able to apply for this money. All that kind of stuff, I think, is after the bond. And so that's where I'm just kind of saying, let's get the bond
Well, and maybe with that,
presentation together first for the county council.
and I'll just say one last thing that Steve said. Okay. he said, he gave us that PowerPoint at the first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It came in the email, all right? He said we could update that, Brian could update that, any of us could update that and tweak it to add in these things, but certainly take out, you know, all the past subcommittee stuff, but address exactly what you're saying. The bond money amount, break it down for residential, commercial, the criteria for using the bond money and how it would be split out per city, what the cities have to do. I better write that down, right? What cities have to do with their own open space agreement. It's right here in the new bylaws that we just passed.
I mean, I think one of the subcommittees after March that we ought to do, especially with Heidi, I think we ought to go and with Cortland, we ought to go and see what kind of situations, or what's the ability for the cities to do their own little type of impact fee or whatever, you know? County too. I don't know. I would like to explore that more because that's an easy revenue source that is probably not that hard to do.
Yeah, earmark a small percentage or something.
Two grand a building permit, just to, it probably can't be an impact fee. It probably has to be associated in an annexation. That's why I'm not so sure if the county can do it, but but it could be in like an annexation development agreement or something.
Let's get John Woodard to do some analysis. Okay.
Who's that?
He's the lawyer for Doug Smith.
Planning.
These are planning, yeah.
Let's get him to do an analysis for us and have a presentation, or just send us a presentation on what you're saying. Okay, what does the county or the cities have to do to develop the impact fee or conservation fee?
Probably can't be an impact fee because we're not paying
Well,
for public improvements
And I'm not sure,
because of growth.
I'm not sure that's even in our scope of
It
work
isn't.
that we're supposed to be discussing. I mean,
It isn't, but
Midway's gonna do their own thing, let me tell you.
I know they are. Well,
So they're pretty fired up and ready to go, so all I'm saying
but
is.
you've got a half the council that maybe, they're not all in sync over there, I don't
Really?
think.
No, but,
Some of the older ones and some of the newer ones there's kind of a clash.
right, so that's their issue.
But they're probably for this. I just don't know if you can do it on like anything you've already annexed, but anything that's newly annexed, why couldn't you put it in an annexation agreement?
Well, it's one of those density bonus things the
Yeah.
cities can do, right?
Yeah.
That you down zone, and then you give a density bonus if they will, you know, provide the mitigation fees.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any way to associate it with commercial. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have, and I'd be more than happy to ask John to look into that.
Well, looking at the license renewals and when we do $10 for the bypass road, I mean, does that turn into $12.50, $15? I mean, are there other ways too outside of annexation? Well, can I just take a step back since I was gone last week in the least happiest place on earth?
Where's that?
Was it the least?
No, it was okay.
He still got sore feet.
Long. We had some stories, but maybe for another day. So just to be clear on our objective, I got the YouTube videos that you sent. I was able to watch the first one, which is 28 minutes or something, but I think there was another one or two.
Just one.
Okay. Just to be crystal clear on our objective, we're here to do what?
This. Oh, wait.
Our number one priority, and this is what the county council said, Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, last May.
I tried to before, but it doesn't work. I'm just kidding.
You tried to what?
Correct you when you're wrong.
Oh, I can take correction very well, I thought. Is when the county council talked about putting this group together, they basically said, let them decide and recommend to us whether a bond should go on the ballot. Because they didn't want to get into all that. Let the advisory group figure this out, bring some information together, and make a recommendation.
On
Because
bonds only, but not on transfer of development rights?
No.
Okay.
No, just a bond election in
that helps.
November. And Celeste last meeting, the Midway mayor said, and we need to figure this out pretty soon because I've got Midway residents that want to put it on the November ballot if you guys don't. So we've really set, that's why we're meeting with the county March 28th, because by the end of March, we want to recommend, you know, what to do here, and so then Midway knows what we're doing. That's number one, because quite honestly, if we're not going to put a bond on the ballot in November, then we don't need to be pressing so hard on this group in the next 3-4 months. I mean, there's no reason for all of us who have full-time jobs and are very, very busy to be trying to work this out at the rate we're trying to do it, which is weekly right now to get ready for the county council. So in my mind, that's number one, is are we putting a bond on the November ballot? That should be our focus, and then after that, then we're supposed to be developing criteria and coming up with a plan and all this other stuff that goes along with that. Some of which we're going to want to educate the public on this summer. If there is a bond on the ballot, we're going to need to come together and educate the public. So that's a big part of what we would do if it goes on. But if we're not putting a bond in November, then in my mind, you know, Midway's going to do their thing anyway,
Well,
and then we're going to have another year or so to pull this all together so that next year it'll be on.
Well, let's assume it's already on the county council agenda to vote on whether or not to put it on the agenda. By the 14th, we need to probably not, you know, try to make sure we stay on track and get outlined what we're asking for, how much money, whatever. I mean, county council just barely did this with the fire advisory board, and they came to us with a very nice presentation. They laid out exactly why we needed the money we did, and it voted unanimously. You know, got approved unanimously. And I think you kind of got to do the same thing with this if we want it approved. And so we got till the 14th.
Could you get us a copy of that? I imagine it's public record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'd love to see.
But it was definitely based more on. Yeah, it was easier though than what we're doing, because it was on defined needs.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, they did a needs assessment. Well, they ordered a needs assessment, right?
And there was a grundle. Well, they've ordered it out of the new tax increase, but the part of the budget, the new budget, was to include the payment for a needs assessment to go forward.
So let me ask one more follow-up question. So we're talking about whether or not to bond. That's the issue. Now, have we defined the area? Are we talking Northfield specifically? Are we going countywide into Midway? Does that include, you know, your neck of the woods?
It's countywide. It's countywide.
Yeah.
And with that language, would we?
It would be
the
very
council-
broad so that we can use this money 10, 15 years in the future, depending on identified properties.
Okay,
I
who
think-
identifies those properties?
We
Who
do.
In the future.
Or the cities, see the municipality, these are the bylaws for.
So we're backfilling money
And the
first, then
municipality
projects?
can have their own open space board.
Yeah, well,
And they
We probably
can
gotta
send their
identify half a
own
dozen.
map.
some of us have
And then
been
they
working
can
on
do
this
some
for
of the
3 years, and we already have
based on their
identified
tax
landowners, grant
So
money,
it can be
private funding.
the
We've got
county
it all
identified
ready to
all those
go.
board would do.
So there's some
And then every
things we
city
could
can
come
say,
right
well,
out
we
and
already
do.
have our board.
And
These
then
are the
in the
properties we're
meantime, all
interested
these
in. We want a
other
portion of that.
community,
And they can
neighborhoods
certainly
who
do their own
think they
fundraising
have
or matching, like
a
Disney
willing
would do for the
seller
county
to put a conservation
land.
easement on
And
or
I'm sure
whatever,
you
then
know,
they
this
have
board
to
will work
do
with
all the
cities,
work we've
right,
done
for
on
valuable land that this board
that.
likes
But
that might be in cities.
we could get a couple
But I think-
successes
I
right
think
out of
another
the
one
gate
for-
because, but it's in the
And
Northfields
it's in
because
Northfield.
that's what happened with the last referendum.
Yeah, I think
Was
that's
we
the
needed
no-brainer,
to
right?
get
Mhm.
a plan.
You got it down.
Okay, I guess
down
I
zone.
Spencer.
Straight up
it
subdivision.
breaks it out in that document, that the percentage of taxable value the cities
Yeah,
can use to.
Mhm.
$8 million, $10 million.
I'm not so sure though, a lot of the priority that Heber has, maybe
We don't
not
have a
inside the
finance
city.
board yet. Well, you know, we're focusing more on parks and trails,
Mhm.
which is like open space, right? For our
Mhm.
city, it's just usable open space. So we do have land in mind, but we don't have a board.
Yeah, we don't know
That
if it's
makes sense
inside
for
of,
a
if
city
it's,
as opposed to a county.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the future, we would choose, now, I made the comment last time, I would like to see us get the most bang for our buck. You know, where we could buy 10 acres in the North Fields, we could probably only buy half an acre of that same property in Midway. But, like Celeste brought up last time, well, if they can couple it with some tax credits and some other reasons, well, maybe that land in Midway is the same value, or the Heber. It's the same, but I like to get us the biggest bang for our buck, and we're gonna get the biggest bang for our buck in unincorporated, A20, P160, that kind of ground.
But I think we're also looking at not buying land if we can help it.
We're not.
You know,
Oh, no.
We're not buying.
It's all just conversation easements.
Yeah.
I don't think we wanna own it.
No, we don't want to
No,
maintain it.
and as we
Because then
said
this
at the
county would have
last
to hire a
meeting,
farmer.
well, and it's the least.
I'll take that job.
Me too.
It's
It'd be a
the
conflict of
least
interest for both
effective
of us,
way
so you
to
know.
do what we're trying to do, is to buy land outright. It's just the least effective way. We need to,
So in the scenario that we
need to
don't,
leverage that
Yeah.
bond money 3 times.
Right.
so in the scenario that we don't purchase land outright, we just purchase the conservation easements. Basically, Farmer Joe keeps his land, but agrees that he will never develop, and that, are we
It's
transferring?
deeded at the recorder's office that he will never develop.
Right.
So it's not just he signed something,
It's in
it's
perpetuity.
recorded and
Yeah.
it's in a
And is this a voluntary buyout?
totally, it's
Yeah, it's
totally voluntary.
And that's, I think, goes back to the education, you know, when we get to
Well,
that point.
because they can't afford the estate taxes to deed it to their children.
Yeah.
So this is actually a great way for them to keep it in the family.
Reduces the tax burden. If you take the development rights off the land, you're locking it at an agricultural tax value. And so even though a neighborhood's going all around your property, and you're now an island of agriculture, you don't get rezoned into a denser zoning, and so you don't move your, this is how they preserve ranches across the west recently. And I think really, if we're the only ones coughing up money in any one of these applications, we've failed at our job. There's a
Well,
lot of
that
private
should
money
not
that we
be
should
a
have.
priority property then, is the point. Is if we're the only ones coming to the table with money and they haven't, you know, whoever comes to us with an application for this bond money, they've got to show grants, they've got to show a participation from the seller, from the landowner, I shouldn't say seller, from the landowner. And then even some private donations to match. I mean, there's got to be some leveraging of our money. We really just don't want to hand over a check for $1 million to anybody without it being leveraged.
And
This
there's
is
plenty
part
of
of it.
entities, there's plenty of entities that do this. I mean, like,
Yeah, we're not-
a good buddy of mine's on the board for Utah Open Lands,
Okay.
and this is all they do.
Who?
I mean, Eric Lee, he's
Okay.
their attorney. So, you know, this is what they do. They're out there looking for properties that they can sort of coalesce on.
So what we were talking about last meeting was the fact that it's not just areas we're looking at that landowner to go, is he willing to step up? Is there other things that we can get grant money for, habitat, wetlands, you know, historic agriculture land, things like that, that there's grant money out there for. So it's not just, oh, that's a great spot, let's get it. It's also, are these entities coming forward and can we leverage our money to the best of our ability? That puts it higher up in the list as well as just a great spot, you know?
Well, speaking of spots, though, the one thing I think maybe we should consider is as you pull into the Heber Valley from Highway 40, you get to River Road, there's that 40-acre commercial parcel. So I think no seller in his right mind is just going to sit on it and say, thank you, please compensate me, and I'll agree to keep it ag. He has the density, he has the rights to develop, which is worth a lot. So I think
He
one-
does have some issues with the property though, too. He doesn't have egress and he doesn't have enough water. There's water issues on the property. So I'm just saying that he's not ready to go to
But
develop right now. He
actually,
still has issues to
That same
reconcile.
developer came to the county council a year and a half ago, and many of those issues have been worked out, water and egress, ingress. So I just think that if we save this big area of North Fields, for example, but yet the first thing you see when you get to the Heber Valley is some condos, gas station, then that's gonna have some,
That's what it's got right now. It's a
Well,
lot.
and that's, you know, that's down the road again. We're,
Yeah.
we're getting way ahead of ourselves and starting to talk about individual properties. I think what we need to do
Well, I
would
only
be
say
more.
that because that one's unique and that,
It is.
you know.
Yeah,
It's an
but
entry.
we don't know if the seller's a reasonable guy either.
It's a view shed.
So,
There's
I
three
mean,
different sellers, we looked it up last time.
Let's see, do we know
What's
what the
that?
sellers are?
There's three different property owners, it's
Yeah,
broken up into
it's-
three parcels now.
the commercial
it's-
area around there has like pads and
Yeah.
they all have, so
There's-
it's not a slam dunk by
I've
any
seen some
means.
architectural renderings on it, different things they want to do there.
I have too, including the swimming pool and gas stations. And I've actually been in touch with the guy who originally had planned all that out. I think he's backed off now, but
I was gonna say, when was the last time you talked to him?
yeah, it's been a while. He's
Yeah.
backed off.
They have it on the market. I mean, that's usually an indication. that you're
Well,
buying
and that
funds.
big sign, if you read it, they were leasing out commercial space. If you read the sign like I did, and I took a picture of it, and I went home, because I called the guy to find out what the deal was, and,
Confidentially,
was-
though, I know they have it on the market.
yeah, but I'm just saying, they were hoping to, that was the sign a year ago, or year and a half ago, they were, but that, no, I'm just saying that they were leasing, they had it out there leasing commercial space, and it's like, oh, okay, it
It's-
wasn't.
It's in the potential annexation plan for the
Mhm.
city right now, just that little corner.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because of, I guess, similar property.
Well, it's
across
North,
the
it's
street.
North Village.
Well, and we
That's
talked,
part of North Village.
we had another meeting we had, with the, like, Heber Planning and Mayor, we talked about maybe the way to, if there was some way to give added density somewhere else and take it from there,
Yeah,
maybe
that's
that's.
TDR. That's a
Yeah.
great way to go.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is our values are so high. We've had
Right.
Wasatch County has
Yeah.
had a TDR ordinance in place since '07,
Well,
never been used.
Really?
We would have the most, when we did the numbers back 10 years ago, Justin, right?
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
We would have had the most expensive TDRs in the whole nation
Wow.
because of our land values back then. I don't think they changed that much
Oh,
or
I think that-
increased.
And unfortunately, the places that the TDRs were supposed to work, like, the reason the TDR ordinance even got put into place was they were gonna switch, transfer density from the North Fields into North Village.
And
But North Village, 20-plus years ago, was given more density than it needs already, so.
Yeah.
Well, I digress, but let's get back to.
Oh, okay, so what you were saying is March 14th proposal, all right? We want to talk about bond money, why